Viewer discretion is advised.
There comes a time when a legend seeks a new challenge, when his current status merely leaves him hungry for more. Icarus buys wings of the finest wax that can be acquired on the open market, yearning to soar to heights that his previous position wouldn't let him go. Yet it's a fool's errand. These men fail to heed the warnings of soothsayers before them, and their actions will not only lead to the doom of their teams, it'll be their own undoing. It's what we call the Phil Jackson phenomenon. To understand the Phil Jackson phenomenon, you have to look at two men in particular, Mike Holmgren and Phil Jackson. Both were accomplished head coaches, reputable champions, in some cases oversaw dynasties, proven Hall of Famers that desired more in life. And what's a new challenge? The executive branch. And getting thrown a shitload of money by desperate franchises helps as well. There was only one problem with their organizational reigns. They failed miserably. Holmgren was afflicted with the horrible curse of being with the Cleveland Browns. Jackson's time with the Knicks was simply obtuse. Despite their ambition, the reality is that they would have been better off coaching those teams. Holmgren himself admitted it a few years after he left, although I don't know if Jackson would have done well with his archaic system. Therefore, we can define the Phil Jackson phenomenon in one sentence. Being a great head coach doesn't translate into being a great executive. Different skill sets are required for both. One requires extensive man management and leadership. The other's about asset management and roster building. Holmgren and Jackson were unable to adapt to the new requirements of such a move. Now we get to see it again in Nashville. The Predators are a solid team, but lack the bite to compete for a cup. They have glaring flaws and are merely mid, existing to lose in the first round. At best, David Poyle's Twilight in the NHL realm had been more than apparent. Even after years of service, he knew it as well. David stepped aside after being the only GM they've ever known. His replacement, Barry Trotz, the OG coach, a Stanley Cup champion, a man who's always gotten more out of less. The signs were pointing in an obvious direction. Nashville will finally be embracing what they need to: a rebuild. Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson were vastly overpaid and didn't fit the future vision. Buying them out was bitterly tough but necessary. Under a new age, they can forge glory out of mid-tier hell.
Psych!
Where they can splurge on the finest hockey team this side of life pre-COVID. That sounds a lot better than a long-ass slog, don't you think? Duchene and Johansson fluff, but they lacked the true Canadian grit of Ryan O'Reilly. He just oozes intangibles and captaincy. Hell, he even chose to come here over being critically lambasted by Leafsnet every night. Luke Shen was pretty good in Toronto last year, too. The New Age Trotz machine needs defensive anchors, so he gets a rich sum to come to the Music City alongside Ryan. That in and of itself is fine. Barry wants to put his mark on the team, but then his first full campaign as GM happened. Expectations of being bottom feeders, it's a Trotz team, what do you expect? They were strong, but looking past the surface, that Predators team reeked of unsustainability. A significant chunk of players had career years in 23-24. Philip Forsberg nearly had 50 goals when he had only hit the 40-goal plateau once before. Ryan O'Reilly hit highs he hadn't touched in a half-decade. Gustav Nyquist was averaging nearly a point per game. Hughes' previous high had been 54. Hell, Colton Sissons of all people had a peak year. Yet even for all that, their only rewards were a wildcard spot and first-round exit. Vancouver was down to a third-string goalie for most of that series, too. Jussi Saros was out here putting up Herculean efforts, and it still wasn't enough. That should have a GM doing some deep soul-searching. Their offense went flat, boasting a team in a limbo of dead cap hits and lacking a powerful motor. Trotz Hockey has always done more with less, but it either needs to dismantle or load to break out of it. And Barry don't care for rebuilding. First salvo, extending Jussi Saros. He more than earned his pay, you know. Now New Jersey can stop cold calling them regarding his availability. Only problem was that it pissed off the crown jewel in their prospect pool. Yaroslav Askarov didn't see a way forward and commandeered his way out. Oh, he'll get his wish, all right. To the hockey hell of San Jose. Let the spending spree begin. A man like Steven Stamkos doesn't hit the market often. Plus, with his skills on the power play, he'll be a valuable asset. Stammer will get his revenge on Tampa Bay for a 4-year term. Jonathan Marchessault, strong top 6 forward who's showing no signs of decline, plays a style of hockey that fits in a Trotz system. He's getting paid a sum that no longer makes him a misfit. The defense needs another jolt. Not you, Ryan McDonough. You can kindly fuck off back to Tampa. I'm talking Brady Shea, a fine second pairing D-man. And a 7x7? Somebody was just adding shit to the Amazon cart by the end. And that was how the Predators won the offseason in one day. Raise the banner and prepare for a season of wonder. So that was the cratering a bunch of hockey analysts were fearing in 2023. Lovely. So everyone knows that Nashville's become a locale this year. You can finger point at everything under the sun, but the cold reality is that everyone has regressed. Throw a stick at any player and their production's probably fallen off hard. Forsberg's nowhere close to even a 40-goal pace. And he's the only one that's reached the 20-goal summit so far. A strong majority of their depth scoring is gone. The free agent signings haven't been awful per se. O'Reilly and Marchessault have been okay for what it's worth, but the supposed high-end impact they've had is minimal. Stammer's been a huge disappointment, and Shea, about the same. One thing about Trotz's Predators is super obvious. They are fucking old. The entirety of their core is over the age of 30. You say Saros isn't yet, but he'll hit the big 3-0 in April. All their wheeling and dealing, and they were rewarded with the second oldest team in hockey. Edmonton's core is not nearing their mid-30s. Plus, it has much better talent in the forward core. Look, I'm not dismissing Nashville. Roman Jossi's really fucking good. He's the most talented player not named Saros on the roster. He's gonna be 35 this summer. I have a hard time believing it too. Now, having an old core isn't an issue if you have a cost-effective youth infusion. Problem is, the guys that were supposed to be their new wave were all but exiled. Most of them shed for nothing on the waiver wire. They traded a third-round pick just to get rid of Cody Glass. Maybe there were all the extra cost of getting that insane haul for Tanner Jeannot or something. So what's left at the NHL level are Luke Evangelista, Fedor Svechkov, and Zach LaRue. Decent players, but they aren't going to slot into the core anytime soon. Nearly everyone else isn't ready yet. What former coaches like Barry tend to do is over-rely on past experiences. I did things this way and we won championships, so I'm going to build my teams with that same philosophy. Problem is that the game changes. Barry took the wrong lessons from his time with the Islanders. Those teams didn't succeed because they lacked elite horsepower. They succeeded because they had Barry Trotz coaching them. Now the Preds have Andrew Brunette. He's not Trotz. To be fair, not many are. And Trotz himself couldn't save this team since it's like me in the bedroom. They can't finish with a damn. All you have to do is look at their goals for above expected rating. Dead last. A team that splurged on offensive talent these last few off-seasons. Dead last. Their goals per game's down there with the Sharks and Ducks. And the less said about their 5-on-5 play, the better. Also dead last, FYI. But at least Nashville had Plan B in their medicine cabinet. No worries about the lack of offensive production. You say Saros is the key to this team. Why do you think they extended him to a handsome sum this past year? To have the worst season of his career? So what if I were to tell you that Saros has transformed into a below-average NHL goalie? For the less hockey-inclined among you, that means Nashville is Instagram model on a trip to Saudi Arabia levels of fucked. Saros has bailed out middle-of-the-road Preds teams in the past, yet he's unable to conjure old form to do the same here. I'm not worried about him, though. Bad years happen to all goalies. At least they better hope so with what they just bestowed. The problem 4 years ago was that despite their efforts, Nashville was stuck in a mud pit with little hope of getting free. After all this time, they're stuck in a mud pit with little hope of getting free. Trotz tried to buy a core with what was available and it hasn't worked. Even in their prospect pool, it's solid, but the upside of most of their guys are middle six forward or second pairing defensemen. Unless a guy or two defies expectations, there's nothing here that screams impact player. Now that would be useful if you had a strong core to build on in the future, but when said core is aging, it's building your foundations on quicksand. Most of their prospects might be ready in about 2 to 3 years. At that point, Josi and Stamkos will be 37. Marchessault 36. Forsberg, Shea, and Saros potentially hitting the tail end of their prime. They might be in another situation where they'll have to overhaul things due to the timing not being right. So I can hear the argument now. They're terrible records due to terrible luck. They have too much talent to be this consistently bad. Trends point to a bounce back. That's the problem. Even if they were producing to what they were expected to, they're merely mediocre. This is not a team that's going to compete for championships unless Saros steals games rivaling a master thief. The Preds were a team that needed to undergo a rebuild yet chose gambler's fallacy instead. One more push. One more free agent wave is all we need. Then we'll hit the big time. More realistically, Barry bet his house on red and lost. Now the question is, can he dig out of the hole he's buried himself in? It's obvious Nashville will be sellers. Gustav Nyquist should get you a second or third rounder. If you're lucky, a team might throw a first for Colton Sissons. Ryan O'Reilly could get a solid package if they choose to move on. Someone drastically overpaying for Jeremy Lauzon like the Preds did? Nope. He's undergoing surgery, off the table. And it's not like they can do a ton with the contracts they've signed. Most of them have no trade clauses, so trying to get out of the Shea or Stamkos deals ain't happening. So this season's a wash, but does Barry try to buy again in the offseason or hold serve? Because the way this team's been constructed, they aren't doing much of anything. At the end of the day, the only reality is an ascension to a spiral no one wants to experience. The Phil Jackson phenomenon.